Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here. We stand for the pledge. Mr. Kelly, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I understand we don't have anybody signed up for public comments. So Alex, please make your.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live broadcast of the Schuylkill Board of Education meeting. I'm Alex Antonsik. Tonight's meeting is being held again in the Deptford Intermediate School. Toss it back over to School Board President, Mr. Violi.
Thank you, Alex. We're going to move into Board President's recommendations, and it is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee or official with action to follow.
I'll move.
Second.
The first and the second, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes. We are motion carried. We're in executive session at 6:02.
Take a momentary pause here in the executive session. We'll be back in a few minutes when we finish that. Any ideas? You think it could be that? That's it?
That's a question.
My brother, I'm on City Council.
You know, does the city council do again?
What's that?
Do they have a liaison with the city council?
Yeah, it's like every year. And they have a liaison. Just interested to see what they're gonna talk about at the school education. I coach, my brother did tutor
So what do you coach?
cross country.
Okay. Is that, both boys and girls?
Yeah. Well, middle school.
Middle school? High school, are they separate teams in high school?
Well, they're separate teams in middle school, but I coach both of them. Right, high school, they split up.
So somebody that doesn't like to run, like me, how do you get them to want to run? How do you get them to learn to like it?
In middle school, trying to get it fun, just play games, because then they're running without thinking about it. Just do different workouts, so that way it's not the same thing. You're not just going out to.
So do you run long distances, or do you do a lot of short work?
The meets are in middle school are 2 miles, but during like practice, we'll do like some sprint workout and stuff, so that way like it, because they're going towards the finish line, so they want to kind of sprint. Most of them are facing kind of long distance workout. Get yourself in shape, I guess.
I'm not trying to steal any secrets. I just find it interesting what people do with the things. I have a son-in-law. My son-in-law set a 400 meter record in Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati. 6 or 7, 8 years ago now. And he never picked up running until he was in high school.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, running one of those things you just tend to do.
so what his coaches worked on was they were all like 80-yard sprints. One right after another.
Yeah.
They didn't run. And to me, I guess I would have thought that you would have been running 2 laps. You know?
Yeah, so that way we do.
So an A lap doesn't seem short, but I guess it was learning how to breathe while you're sprinting.
Yeah, there's so many different workouts that you can do with running and even walking, just breathing. I like it. I don't like the running personally, but I used to when I was younger. I like the breath like it's hard on the knees.
Is that Hano or Kawasaki or?
No,
I'm just teasing.
no, I don't. I'm not riding into those things. Those are dangerous. Those are scary. What are you?
I'm Doug Collins. I'm presenting a product project.
For the bus. At least I heard.
It's a simple concept, but complex to manage.
I think anything in transportation is hard to, because you have to deal with all kinds of stuff.
Well, there's also numbers in. When somebody has to go somewhere, somebody has to make that.
Right.
That was just my person, you know. Transportation is so misunderstood.
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
Yeah, they expect it to be.
We're used to having things shipped. We're used to hauling. We're used to doing that. So we think we have a basic understanding of it. But if you look at like with a commercial truck, you have a shipper who gets the product ready, right? Then there's the carriers, and then there's the receiver. Okay? There's three different parts to it. In school transport, but in school transportation, we don't look at the students as the product to ship. We don't look at parents as the ones that need to be. We don't look at the parents as the shipper. We don't look at parents as getting the product ready to go. We don't look at schools as a receiver. We don't have the same normal transportation. In the afternoon, it reverses. The school becomes the shipper. We still have the same carrier, but then the parents become the receiver. And so when any one of those things, so either the shipper or the receiver have expectations that are hard to meet. Because the parents are shipping the home, they don't understand shipping in the afternoon. You know what I mean? It's complex, and it makes it complex. Another thing, in the trucking world, your product normally doesn't talk to you. Your product doesn't normally give you different directions than the shipper has to do. Because in the morning, the shipper is giving you instructions where they go. In the afternoon, the shipper is giving instructions.
So what about, okay, just, hey, yes.
Sometimes the parents do it like the shippers both. So you see how the expectations get. So the concept is that you pick them up, you take them to school, and at the end of the day, the children get on the bus and get dropped off where they got on. That's really simple. There's so much that goes into
Whether adds more on
I always think about transportation department.
More.
There's only one thing that you get that happen. 6 hours every day. And that's that you get that bus to its first pickup. On time, close in the morning and in the afternoon. From that point on, it's a bus route, it's transportation. You ask for allowance for the variation that happens.
playing catch up the whole time. Then you're driving.
So who holds your team? Have you ever thought about being a bus driver?
I have I'm in the national driver, like, I'm in the transportation unit, so like, just something in the National Guard. So I can get like, my commander to sign off on a CDL form. And I
There's a chance next year CBA will be extended.
I wasn't talking about being a full-time driver, I was talking about like,
Yeah.
or like
Juniors are still
driving.
going.
Yeah, juniors.
Oh, yeah, I actually looked into
The
that.
juniors.
Because usually, our events are on Saturday. Drive the team, not have to.
Yeah, that won't happen.
No.
You're fine.
But then it gets to be like. Drive.
So, but we have to take a reasonable.
I was the youngest. I was the youngest. Of West Ohio. I turned 21 in August. I was driving buses in September.
Yeah, expensive.
Yeah.
Did you work for the state?
I work for Ohio School Board Association. We're not a state organization. We're an association.
Okay.
Board member. Our sole reason for existence is to help all school board districts. That's our sole.
You have to get elected to that? Or-
No.
The meeting.
Denise Bob
Yeah.
is a trustee.
Really a good session.
On our board. Our board, we have a board of
Felt
trustees.
something off this time.
So we operate similar to what a school district operates. We have directors and we have a board of trustees.
That too.
And we have different divisions.
So,
The man that I work with, who's mentoring me, is the state director for golf.
So what's the takeaways that we can look for?
And that's very good. So he actually had written, he actually has written or reviewed all of the Ohio administrative codes for buses operation.
we think about those people that stopping it. But.
We'll go that presentation.
I saw this in a movie.
Yeah.
I did watch.
I'm actually
You didn't like it?
going to write an article
It's a
for
little egg-shaped car. And it has two
our
seats.
organization,
It's
our association
sitting
next week.
in the cage.
It talks about that.
Right.
There have been so many.
Right?
Yeah, and
It's super good. And so you have the cage.
and I have some really good research. I
This
have to go
fall.
to the University of Utah in order
This
to
kind
get
of
the okay to release this
Yeah.
information.
You're going to have to say.
Get the text out. They studied cognitive distractions, right? And what they found is there are so many things within the vehicle that the vehicle can do that are cognitive distraction levels is at an all-time high. And they said using a sensory device.
Oh, yeah.
Music had a
We'll have the opportunity.
You're most welcome.
Speaking
Go to
commands to your vehicle raises that to category 3.
It was just like too tight.
So in other studies that I've read,
Yeah, but so many people go through.
just talking on the phone, you limit the amount of information your brain processes by 40%. And so if you see these, if you see the specific answers being given by people who have hurt children, they say, I never saw it. And we don't know why. Well, it's not hard. It's not hard to understand. Because it both people is cognitive distraction. They probably only take 20% of the information from it. And if you're only focused on 20%, think about how much 20%. If you look at that wall and you only see 20%, how much information you're missing. The other thing we've done is that we keep adding units, we keep adding
Progressive.
and that's this. Because it's not a traffic control device. Warning people that
It's
it's not trying to control. Because drivers can look at the lights of the bus and be traffic. Well, it's yellow, I'm going to it's warning you that that bus is going to stop. Why don't we treat school buses like that?
I don't know. It's not. Because then
If you're driving through the neighborhood and you see a ball go into the street, what do you do?
well, they have pretty regular super levels, but like, it's not. It's thicker than
And what rides buses?
regular,
And who's following
but it's
buses?
still not like what you
And who's
expect.
getting on and off buses? But you don't see that clause.
Would be on the pitch.
That is students. We apply the brakes, we slow down, we give them more students, we should not be trying to use the lights. It wasn't so good. Seeing the
Last year, I was
slowing down and making it out.
I had like,
Yeah, it's hard to use it, like, some people don't understand.
my family went out to dinner and they had all that. But
Like, it's just like, it's like,
they came home and brought me one of the.
Oh, yeah.
3 days for lunch every day.
Or divided, is it 5 lanes? Yeah, living in it.
I think it's just two, you know, because when you're driving, you have to think about it before you see us put the lights on, you should stop.
But even if you stop.
But, yeah, so like, so what is it, 4 lane, you've got a 5th one in the middle. You don't have to stop.
It's a divided highway, if it's divided, you don't have to stop them.
But then there's just a line.
It's just a line, you stop.
And then if it's, yeah, that's a 5 lane, turn lane.
It's not divided.
Yeah, we have. I saw. Well, I saw.
Yeah.
I don't understand how these people just get built through. Like, 2 lane road. Well, you see someone else do it.
What are they doing? Even just thinking about what you're gonna take yourself. So you're just gonna focus on that vehicle following. And now you're gonna, I understand how to put pressure because I have incidents where I've been distracted.
Yeah.
How did the distraction happen?
Excuse me.
At one point, I
I just don't remember how.
called police to pass the I have a 50-foot long trailer.
They're doing another one.
Like, everything's reflector on it. I park at a restaurant, unloading in the morning. They're serving breakfast. Customer walks out, gets in his pickup, backs into the side of the truck. Now, he had to, when he came out the door, he had to walk around to get in his truck. I've been unloading the truck, and he walks around, and he goes, I thought I was,
Some of the stuff that I kind of.
comes around and goes,
Oh. Wow.
You had to walk around.
yeah, you walk around. Didn't see it. I mean,
So.
He's thinking about it.
he's saying, nobody.
Do you know Logan Campbell?
No. I think it's very smart. You haven't hit
He's speaking. Like about 10 minutes after. You're coming home for a Monday. Who's dying? I fell over in that chair. That's not how it works. Yeah. It's just funny because in the whole video, like there's a 2-minute long one, but they don't call for it. Before it's like maybe you want to talk about their project for 2 minutes, and Noah would do and then they go like, oh yeah, we're Spanish. You're supposed to do heartbeat and stuff like that. So it's like, do you guys want to talk about it? She was like, sure. By the water. She goes, just call me with you. And she goes, yeah, and then take it back. And I'm like, what kind of Spanish subject is this? All I know is that in Spanish student, we don't have to say so over time, I'm sure that's going to be the most common phrase. Yeah, you're going to say take blood pressure. So I take blood pressure. You take blood pressure. Daily. You know how to say you take blood pressure. I'm going for a doctor. Generalized education.
Stood off at Ohio University.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I did a week to do that. Which is really good. And he goes, every night they just I had you can't stay down here. I was right there. Just get out there. You're gonna get along. That's all So yeah, so these guys. Friends are.
You don't.
Yeah, well, that's what I know. I said, "We're spending $10,000. So you got to hang with 20 months for
He's always got school and he's got work. Is he still working next week?
I don't know.
I just need to see if he's always busy. What's Brandon going for? Oh, that's cool. Louisville,
I've been.
If you want to. We'll select.
you guys choose a previous up and coming person to come as well.
Yeah, well, when we select.
The breakfast. This
Yes.
What day is this?
His son,
is.
and he was trying to develop.
Is that the water?
So you could just put things in.
And the cool thing about they have that's the thing, the guys talk about when they have so warm coffee.
That's the important part.
That's
Not the unlimited bacon.
no.
It's the Brendan's running for catch.
You had COVID, and it was overwhelming. Taking every scenario. Some kids didn't sales tax. So you couldn't put a code in one place, you couldn't. You know, it was. Every 3 months, we change. Restaurant.
This is mine.
This one was, that's a real good one. Let me see. So it's done? Yeah, so it's it's aggressive.
I feel like I'd be more closer to the I don't know. That's Logan? That's not okay, Logan. But that probably is because I'm easy to approach right down. Yeah, they were extra.
Oh, yeah, what's the young Logan?
Logan looks like 20 years younger every photo we see. He's not even 20 yet.
Yeah, that's, I like that. It's such a good picture. I mean, he's got a little smile on his face.
I knew that. I didn't know any of the six Our products driving us all over the place that we can stop and pick up property. And I said, you can go to the once. It's still gonna cost us. I get 12 hours a year. Just like we're gonna put this. And you never train.
Right. I don't know, but then to take yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes.
I made you say, yeah. I'm a
Unless it's something with technology. Hey, what is the concubine with the with the concubine? Something about Jane Grey, Kathy Howard, Mary Tudor, and that's what type of music did count with guys?
It has a
Doesn't look like it's scripted.
it's hard.
I know where it
Okay.
What year did the bird? 87 is the 89. In which state would you find the cities of Waynesville, Smyrna, it's that. The man knows everything.
No.
He knows a lot about random stuff. These schools. Okay. I keep really good food.
Really? Seen her?
No, he's angry.
I got a really
Well, this is the right segment board meeting. It's gonna be 7:45, 8 o'clock.
Karen feels like yours, and she feels negative.
After that, nothing's gonna leave.
Ryan's birthday is next Saturday. Me and Phoebe, right? Right? So he's 20. Tim's 20. No, you're right.
No, I'm sitting.
I don't know if he's 20. What blood type are you?
They block it.
That's the most common type. First one. Did Logan decide on a fight yet? Where are the others?
Yeah.
They're not about it.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it was going.
Breakfast.
This is.
Is it suit and tie only with a minute?
Well,
Yeah. Does it need to be a C one?
No.
I think it just should.
Yeah.
That would allow me to recognize how we think.
I just did that. Let's do that. There you go, dinner.
That's good.
Steak is my favorite food. I hope I like it. Yes. He's gonna Google it.
But they said, we got to do that steel. They give me, you know, I can find things that are a lot heavier than
This is right. That is a huge piece of yeah, that's two. That's some big piece of steel. It's so much
Yeah, and I told them.
I can't.
that's big. Why does it with a spoon? I keep seeing him with a spoon. They look like I pulled essentially a steak and potato. A hearty one.
But I just want to let you know, because I don't really want anything on CA.
Well, there's nothing that people.
Oh, well, okay, it's your description, okay, no, yeah, we have something on our, maybe I'm wrong. No, what do we have?
Okay.
If it rains, just put it on the
Okay, we're out of executive session at 6:50. And Mr. Bellwell?
Yes, I have two recommendations. Item A is recommended the Board of Education accept the resignation of Brandy Hollis effective November 20th, 2018.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes. Motion carried.
Item 2, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the addendum to the contract of Andreas Johansson in order to assume the duties of transportation supervisor.
Move.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Just quickly, that will be from now until June 30th.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you. Should I move on and actually back
Let's
to you?
do approval of minutes. Here we go. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from October 11th, 2018 and October 23rd, 2018 as submitted. I'll move. I'll second. We have a first and a second. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes. Motion carried. Moving on to superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Students, Mr. Suber, middle school students, I'm sorry that we had a little bit of a delay there. So Board of Education, I'm excited to present this month's Did You Know, where we're going to highlight something that's really cool that you probably didn't know was going on at our schools. And this month, we've invited Mr. Suber's staff and Mrs. Holstoppel to come up and present this month's Did You Know.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everyone else. Again, I'm really glad to have Mrs. Holstoppel here and her girls here because this is a great program that we started this year. It actually originally started at the high school and then kind of made its way to middle school. But the things that our girls have learned and the empowerment they've showed in this program has been wonderful. We've seen outcomes gains already in our school building and just the overall culture of our school. So I'll let them talk more about their experiences. But again, our RISE program has been wonderful. It's been awesome. And now this is whole staff to tell you more.
Thanks for having us here. First of all, before I start talking about rocks, I want to tell you that the girls think all of you are famous because they have been learning about the Board of Education in their history classes, and one of their things they do every week are their should know quizzes, and they have to know all the board members' names. So they are in awe to see you. I just embarrassed them. So I want to take a couple minutes and tell you about ROCKS. This is a program I am very excited about. As Mr. Suber said, it started for Streetsboro at the high school, but it's a national program that was started by a professor at OSU who did a bunch of research into some of the things going on in the lives of girls, and then developed a program to address some of those issues that were being seen. So if you wanted to know a little bit more about it, the things that we're looking at are equipping girls to be productive leaders who are assertive and leading a violence-free lives. Okay, so that's kind of what we're aiming at here. There's some statistics that I want to share with you to kind of back up why this program was developed. So I'm going to have Mr. Johansson play this video for us. It's real short.
At ROCKS, we wanted to gain a deeper understanding of the challenges girls face every day, not just in one region, one community, or one type of school, but everywhere. That's why we developed the Girls Index, the first ever largest of its kind national survey designed to provide new insights into the complex world of today's girls. We surveyed over 10,000 girls from across the country and asked them about the issues impacting their lives. Here's what we learned. Confidence declines sharply from 5th to 9th grade and doesn't return to pre-middle school levels. By the time girls get to high school, 46% don't believe they're smart enough for their dream career. 1 in 3 stay away from leadership positions because they don't want to appear bossy. And 1 in 2 don't speak their mind or disagree with others because they want to be liked. Even among the highest achieving girls, confidence is an issue. 30% with a 4.0 grade point average don't think they're smart enough for their dream job. The Girls Index showed us that we are not dealing with a lack of confidence, rather a crisis of confidence. This research has also helped us understand the role of technology and social media in girls' relationships, aspirations, and well-being. We learned that most high school girls spend 6 hours each day using social media, and those who spend the most time online are 5 times more likely to say they are sad or depressed nearly every day. Girls who spend the most time engaged with technology and social media are less likely to have supportive friendships, participate in extracurricular activities, trust other girls, and enjoy coming to school. But by building confident girls who have effective friendships, we can combat many of these challenges. Over and over, as we asked girls what they needed to be successful, their number one response was confidence. Because confident girls are more likely to share their opinions. Confident girls put trust in themselves and each other. Confident girls grow up to be the brave leaders of tomorrow. Together, we can turn this crisis of confidence into the opportunity of a generation. To learn more about the groundbreaking research in the Girls Index and about ROCKS, go to www.rulingourexperiences.org.
Especially about how confidence declines from 5th grade through 9th grade and then never returns to that level prior to 5th grade. So this is right in the age group of girls that I'm working with 6th through 8th grade. And when I asked them what the things they were dealing with, this is actually the results that we got from a survey we did before this program. So these are the things that I was helping girls with a lot throughout my day, with social media and drama between girls in friendships, as well as within like dating relationships. So these are the things that we're trying to attack through this program. So it is a 20-session small group thing that we do. Currently we're meeting once a week, but we are going to try to finish our 20 sessions with this 8th grade group before break so that I can run another group again after break. So the girls are going to tell you a little bit about what they've learned and how they've benefited from this. And then we'll finish up after that. I'm so proud of, I have 9 girls that I'm working with in this 8th grade group currently. I have 3 that would like to speak tonight. And the other ones are here for moral support. So Camille Churn is our first girl that's going to talk.
Hi. Okay, hi, my name is Camille, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the program ROCKS that I've been attending for a couple of weeks now. I've learned a lot about body positivity, how to love myself, and how to support other girls. I'm gaining self-confidence, and I know how to communicate assertively and other ones as well. I will use these skills to help me in the future in many different ways.
Amari Rivera is our second girl that's going to share her experience.
Hi. Hi, my name is Amari, and I came to tell you about my experience at ROCKS. I have been doing fun and encouraging activities to learn about girls and how to be one with each other. It is hard for me to stand up here and talk in front of people, but I just couldn't hold in my love and excitement. Over the course of this program, I have made more relationships and friendships. I can speak more assertively. I love ROCKS, and I can't wait to hear the next group and how how much they love to role their own experiences.
Finally, I want to introduce Haley Carmen, who's going to share her experience.
Hi, my name is Haley Carmen, and I'm in 8th grade at Streetsboro Middle School. ROCS has been an amazing experience for me. Before I started ROCS, I was going through issues with friends, and I was very self-conscious. ROCS has taught me that I should embrace my inner confidence and just be me. I shouldn't care about what people in society think of me and stay true to myself. We talked about girl on girl hate, and I realized that we shouldn't hate on others, but inspire and pick each other up. ROCS has taught me that I shouldn't compare myself to others on social media and embrace my inner beauty. Before ROCS, I was never confident in sticking up for myself when I felt uncomfortable in a situation. But now I feel more confident than ever. I appreciate the opportunity to be in this program, and I hope this program is used in the future for young girls.
Thank you, girls. So some of the things that we're going to be focusing on, or that we already have, are relationships with other girls, healthy dating relationships, using social media in a good way, and learning to be more assertive and learning to be good leaders. So I'm hoping that we have girls that don't go with some of the statistics that I showed you in the video. Another component that we're going to be doing right before Thanksgiving break is there's a self-defense component. So I'm going to be teaching the girls some self-defense. So I went through a 3-day training in order to be able to be a trained facilitator of this. And I get ongoing support from ROCS. I have a personal coach that kind of helps me through it, that I talk to every so often to give me ideas and to help make this really successful here at the middle school. In the future, can you advance it one more time? In the future, this is my big picture plan. So I have this 8th grade group going on now. I have a 7th grade group that's going on now. I'm going to add a 6th grade group, and then hopefully another 8th grade group over after winter break. So hopefully that's going to be a total of 40 middle school girls who will have gone through this program. The ultimate goal in working with Mrs. Simmons is to have every one of our Streetsboro girls by the time we graduate, sometime between 6th and 12th grade, get this, this program that gives them the knowledge and skills to be successful in the future. So this is ROCS at the middle school.
Board, do you have any questions or comments for the ladies?
Just that I actually heard about ROCS over the summer when I was down in Columbus, and I'm so glad that we were implementing it here. It sounded like a great program, and I'm even happier to hear about it happening here.
Actually, want to talk to you later. There's a partner we have to have a female who's in a typically non-female position as a guest speaker. So I was going to talk to you about that.
I would love to do that.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Oh, no. Yeah.
You know I love to talk. I'll be here.
Any other questions?
Great, sounds like a great program. I'm glad that it's there, and just it's another way that these girls and other girls can realize their potential. It's great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Our next guest, Mr. Doug Palmer from OSBA, and as he comes to the podium, I'm going to kind of set the stage a little bit. So, board, you all remember probably really well the issues, challenges we experienced in transportation to begin the school year, and as a result, you gave me permission to contract with the Ohio School Boards Association, and Doug Palmer was ultimately the gentleman that has become, I would say, a lifesaver for us here in Streetsboro, to take a look at our routes and look at this and study our routes for efficiency, from an efficiency standard. Thanks, girls. By the way, this is the perfect time to sneak out. Good job. So Doug has been here working with us probably for 5 or 6 weeks, maybe even longer, working on a routing study, an efficiency study, And he's here tonight, and the conversation is even more relevant because with our levy failing, we're going to now begin to have to start looking at all areas of our operation on ways that we can be more fiscally responsible and more efficient. So as I have a handout for all of you. And while I'm doing that, Doug, I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to you. But again, this was this board. I applaud you for being so aggressive in your stance of saying we need to try and address our transportation. I thank all of you for being so aggressive in naming an interim and also then approving the services of Mr. Palmer. So I'm going to hand the mic over to him and Doug.
First of all, I want to say that it's been really good to work in a district that has a passion for students and transportation that your district has. And I can't say how much I appreciate being able to work with people that are open and honest, being able to look at what we do day in and day out. It's very honest and very open. And so that alone, getting to that is remarkable because a lot of people become defensive, we become closed off, we're not open. And I want to say that your staff is fantastic. And I couldn't do this alone because I need that feedback. I need getting to the truth. And I really appreciate that. It's been a very much an honor to work for you. We don't need to delve into the history. We've all lived that. But transportation is very complex. We have a shipper in the morning and a receiver in the morning. In the afternoon, it turns around and we have a shipper in the afternoon and a receiver in the afternoon. Those expectations are not always clearly understood. We don't understand the working capacity of the bus, the seating capacity, the route time. All of those things go into this report. Those are the basics. We also had to do student counts, and the drivers counted the students in the afternoon to give us a good, accurate number that we were working with. That's the underlying basis for this report. You can see in this report that the methodology and what we used. I'm just going to go right to the plans that we developed. There are 4 plans that we developed, and that's starting on page 3.
So you're on the left side of the packet or right side?
Yeah. It should be on the left side of the packet on page 3.
So on the left side envelope here, front page, left side, go 3 back.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So to have the right amount of time to run a bus route, to put enough kids in those seats to make it economical, you have to look at the length of time that schools let out. So in the afternoon, when one school lets out, the time the next school lets out, that's your route time. That's the route time. Plan A right now would have the bell times remain the same throughout the district. And also maintain the current number of bus stops. Why that's important is every time a bus makes stops, it takes longer to run the route. And so your route takes longer. Every stop that you add to that route, it takes longer to stop, get started again, and move on. That's the length of the route time. That also has a limiting factor on how many kids you can unload or load in that length of time between bell times that the district has. So that maintains the current number of locations and stops. To operate enough buses to get the kids delivered in those times, you would have to add 2 more buses to your operation. And that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. We'll get into the expenses part. What that does is we're taking kids off of other buses that are already running and putting them on other buses so they can all run a shorter route and get back to the next school on time. That's the basis for that plan. Plan B, it's still double tier routed. It's still doing the same routing that you're doing now. But it delays the start time for the elementary school by 15 minutes, and it makes elementary schools get out of school later. So you spread the time between the high school times and the elementary times, and the middle school times and the elementary times. You increase that length of route time in the afternoon. You increase that length of route time in the morning, but also in the afternoon, you increase that route time. Now you can use the capacity of the bus to a more efficient manner. We don't add any buses on that front. We're using the buses in adjusting routes and making routes, looking at efficiency routes, looking and studying what routes need to run and how they need to run in that allotted time. Plan C is on the next page, on page 4. Plan C is the same beginning as Plan B. We start with the same bell times, the 15 minutes later in the morning, 15 minutes later in the afternoon. In plans A, B, or C. High school and middle school plan, those bell times don't change. We're just talking about changing elementary times so that we have a longer route time between the buses, for the buses to run. But in plan C, we look at making the routes even more efficient by going to more group students. Now, while that doesn't sound as safe, it actually does have a safety component, because in this day and age, the more time you stop vehicles behind a bus, coming at it or behind it, you increase the chances that cars won't stop. And that's been a very deep concern of the transportation industry this fall. We've had more passing incidents and more accidents nationwide than in the fall in a long time. So it doesn't sound like that's safer, but it actually does have a safety element. Again, you have to look for safe locations for the kids to wait for the bus and then to get off the bus at. And those can be done. It's very easily done. It takes some study, it takes a little bit of work, but the amount of local knowledge that you have in this district is fantastic. The bus drivers, they're fantastic. They know their bus routes, they know what's safe, they know the traffic, they know the students. That's not ever been in question. What we're trying to do is trying to make it happen so parents can expect the right time the kids are going to be home. Their kids are going to be home. One thing that we did discuss in this is, even though that we delay school getting out at the end of the day by 15 minutes, it's really not going to change much in time that they get home. Because right now, those kids are being kept at school because the buses aren't making it back to pick them up. So we're not really going to delay what time the kids get home. They're just going to get on the bus and go home. They're not going to be in the classroom or delayed or where they're meant to wait for the buses. So the kids are going to be on the bus and going home in a better fashion. That usually makes for a better educational experience. When kids are moving and they're going places, they usually don't have the distractions and things that interfere with what they've learned in the school day. So it actually helps the educational process. Plan C, though, by finding more efficient ways to use that bus on its route time, we can eliminate a bus. We can reduce the buses. We can go down to 19 buses in your district. Plan B is a severe plan, and that is going closer to state minimum standards. You're going to eliminate high school busing. You're going to go to 3 tiers. So the high school, we don't have to worry about busing. The middle school group of kids are going to go on a tier or a shift of buses, and then they're going to pick up the deafer students on the next tier, and finally the 3rd tier will be the SES group of kids. And we're going to plan for 40 minutes of route time between school buildings. It's a very severe plan, but what that does is that eliminates 9 bus routes. Because you have to have a seat for every student when they get out of school in the afternoon. Mornings are usually not as tight because you can adjust the route time according to your pickup schedule. But in the afternoon, when school lets out, you need to have a seat for every student that's coming out of that school. And this plan does that by using those buses.
So before Doug goes into the cost analysis behind it, just a quick recap, because they went through that quick. Before you get that plan A, our busing, if we leave it exactly the way it is, nothing changes. So then Doug did an efficiency study and presented 4 options of things that we could do with the goal of making our routes more efficient, more cost effective, and getting our kids home in a more efficient manner. So if we left everything the way it was, we would maintain 20 routes, and the routes are what they are. Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand that. Plan A, efficiency item number A, was to leave everything the way it is, but add 2 buses in order to reduce the amount of time those buses are on the road with the high school and middle school, to get those buses to DEPR and SES quicker, thus getting the kids home a little quicker. But as you can see, we're adding 2 buses and we're adding 2 drivers. That's cost. Doug's gonna go over the cost in a second. Item B was, okay, so let's not do that. Let's take SES, Relevant School, and DEPR, and actually start them 15 minutes later and end 15 minutes later, which then gives those middle school and high school buses time to finish their routes and get there, and kids aren't sitting in the gyms waiting. And then we're having coverage issues. And we believe with the second one, Plan B, that those kids would actually get home at about what their time they're getting home right now anyway, except we're maximizing class time. They're in class rather than sitting in the gym or walking down hallways or waiting on buses. Plan C becomes more radical, which is where we bump that time at DEPR and SES, Streetsboro Elementary, ahead 15 minutes, and they get out 15 minutes. And we implement those more group stops. And again, some people immediately think group stops are not safe. It's the district's responsibility to identify safe stops, fewer stops of the bus, less cars getting angry and flying around the bus, all that kind of stuff. And we'll have more group stops only at the afternoon for the middle school and high school, not the elementary or DEPR, with the goal of then getting those kids home faster. And we could then reduce under Plan C, we could reduce by 1 bus route, 1 person on 1 route. And then Plan D is a hybrid of what a lot of districts are forced to do when they're in financial issues. When you hear the word, we're going to go to state minimum busing, where we don't have to bus the high school students. So this is a hybrid of that, because usually what you have is that you also identify a walking zone. So a lot of places will say we're not going to bus high school students, and we're not going to bus anyone within a 2-mile radius. This plan is only not busing high school students, but also, and again, he'll go over this when he goes over costs, this is dramatically changing the elementary day. Dramatically changing. Not arriving until after 9 and not leaving until after 4. But again, the goal was then to create a more efficient system, but it eliminates high school, and we're going to actually reduce our number of buses on the road by 9 buses. So those, again, just a quick recap of it's actually 5 plans, status quo, and then plans A, B, C, and D. And now Doug's going to go over the savings, actual costs with some, but savings with the others.
Are there any questions before I start on the cost? When you do something like this and you're immersed in it, sometimes it becomes hard to help other people see exactly everything I see. So if there's any questions at all, just ask them. I'm open to that, because I want you to be able to see what I've seen. So the cost forecasts are in the next section. And what we start with is the reported cost for your buses on your T2 report last July. That's the base cost. That cost, that total cost, then was divided by the number of buses, and that becomes the base cost that we're working on.
Doug, can I say something first?
Sure.
And maybe Mr. Dalbaugh would like to just maybe reiterate this information. This is a response from the beginning of the school year. It's not necessarily because the levy failed and we're talking about this.
We were
So
working
I
on
just
this
wanted to
long
make sure
before.
that everyone understood that.
Yeah, we were working on this long before the levy passed or failed. The overwhelming feedback to us, and at our last board meeting, we had a resident that stood up and spoke to us about the fact that there have been people saying that they don't feel that our routing is efficient. Kids are getting home later than they've ever gotten home. Those concerns have quieted down, but they have not gone away. I think people they've gone on with their lives now. But because of that, all that overwhelming feedback, That's why we decided to have an independent person, the Ohio School Boards Association. They do this for hundreds of districts across the state that are experiencing issues with their transportation. And they do efficiency studies, and they present you, here are some things that you can do with your routes to make your routes more efficient. They go from best case scenario all the way down to worst case scenario. They give the Board of Education and the community options to make choices. That's what this was. This was initiated and in process long before Tuesday night came about.
Just wanted to make sure, because we have some people in the audience, and I don't want them to have the wrong idea of why we're discussing this right now.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Well, this is part of every routing study for every district. We don't ever stop with just one or two plans. We present every plan that a district could put in place. So this is, whether the levy passed or not, this has nothing to do with it. This is just part of our planning process. So I'm sorry if I didn't make that. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear of how in-depth these things get, because it's not something that people understand very easily.
No need to apologize, sir. I just wanted to make sure that we had everybody on the same page. Thanks.
So going back to the cost, what you're looking at is based on your costs. It's not based on anybody else's costs. It's not based on a state average or anything else. The costs that we're going forward with are what's happening in your district. So under Plan A, if you would start using 22 buses to transport the students, your annual operating cost would be about $1,300,000. In addition to that, you need to buy some buses, because you can't take kids to school without buses if you don't have them. I mean, it's just, so you're going to buy some buses. To buy two buses for those two extra buses, that's about $40,600 per year over a 5-year period to buy two buses. Trying to put that in perspective for homeowners or business people. When you look at a 5-year forecast, that's why it's 5 years. On page 4, we go to Plan B. Plan B, we're not changing the number of buses. We stay at our current operational cost at $1,208,000. Your bus purchases can remain as scheduled. However, your district's scheduling bus purchases, those bus purchases can remain as scheduled.
So we stay at 20 buses. We don't need to purchase any to do.
We don't need to purchase any more buses to do any more routes, any extra routes. Plan C, we're reducing the cost by one bus, so that operational cost in Plan C goes to $1,162,000. Again, your bus purchases stay as scheduled. However, you're scheduling, we're not adding buses for routes. Plan D, the operational cost for student transportation using 11 buses is estimated at $863,714. And you can see the difference. And my supporting documents in your packet help you understand why those numbers are there. Looking at everything that I've looked at, starting to understand the community, working with great people, and with the passion that you have for the students, my recommendation is, as soon as practical, start Plan B. The long-term goal is to move to Plan C. That takes some planning and some notification and time to process. So it's not something that can happen in 2 or 3 months. You're talking about a process, parent notification, feedback, stop evaluations. You're talking about a lot of district knowledge being poured into transportation. Parent knowledge, student knowledge, bus driver knowledge, administration knowledge, board knowledge. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. It takes time to implement that.
Other recommendations I have is that ongoing, students should be counted on buses every month. We need to know where we're going. Are we increasing? Are we decreasing? What buses are getting fuller? Where are kids moving? We have students that have different places they have to go. What's happening there? In all these plans, I recommend addressing bus stop locations and making sure that our buses are stopping at the safest possible locations, making as few stops as possible to allow that route time so we can impact an educational day to starting and end times less impactful. And then with any plan, again, route planning really begins in March. If you wait too long, you're into the end of the summer, you're into summer, your school's out. You know, when children are in school, when students are in school, it's easier to pass information to students and families. When it's summertime, nobody's looking for the school to give them information, to help with decision-making processes. It goes on, but parents aren't going to be open to it. They're not expecting it. And that's really, this whole process is to make sure that our expectations line up exactly. There's a lot of facts and figures in the supporting documents. You have my business cards. If you have any questions at all, feel free to contact me through Mike. Any questions that I can help with right now? I'm open. I'm at your service.
So I just, before you guys ask any questions, I just want to make sure that we understand, again, the goal was to look at our current routing, that we had an overwhelming feedback that there was some concern about how late kids were getting home on a daily basis, how long kids were sitting in the gym at Streetsboro Elementary School waiting for a bus. So the overall goal was to look at all aspects. And the first things I said to Doug was, let's look at this from a standpoint without impacting the instructional day. So I don't want to take 10 minutes off the middle school schedule so that we can get the buses to the elementary, because you're robbing kids from the instructional day. So these plans are designed not to rob anything from any of the instructional day, rather moving times and optimizing routes. And as you heard Doug, I asked him to make a recommendation. That's what he does based on, and the data is pretty amazing. I want you guys to take some time to look through that data. It's pulled from Streetsboro's T1 report. That's our reporting. That's how we get funding from the state. That's all of our busing, fuel, bus costs, routing, kids, everything. That's where this data came from. But when he made the recommendation of as soon as possible, that doesn't mean tomorrow. It's going to take some time. Work toward implementing Plan B, which is taking the Streetsboro Elementary School and defer times and bumping in 15 minutes later in the morning and ending 15 minutes later. So the challenge for our parents are going to be, and again, this is a recommendation, would be that planning in the morning. Because we believe that by doing the 15 minutes later in the morning, ending 15 minutes later in the afternoon, their instructional day is not touched, but we believe the buses are going to be there and they're going to actually get home at about the same time they're getting home now, possibly even quicker. And it's about efficiency. And then work toward implementing C, which is where we reduce down one bus and we create more group stops on the drop off for the middle school and high school, not elementary. And it's drop off. Pickups would remain the same. So there's a summary board questions.
At the back of the packet, there are routing plans listed. There's two for Plan A, an AM and a PM. That's what you're doing about now. That's about what can happen now with buses added. And then plans B and C are there, one page each to have AM and PM. And then the third or the fourth plan, Plan D, actually shows how the three tiers would run and how that would look and what time schedules that would be, about the bus loads and about the times that the buses would be where they start and end their days.
It actually has the times in there, as Doug said, so that you can actually see the timing with each plan.
I do have a question. The costs that are on here, those costs do not include, other than Plan A, additional buses or additional buses down the line
Those
years
only,
from now.
they only include where the plan indicates adding buses. So that we would continue on our same purchase cycle, but that would be determined based on a plan that we chose. For example, if we chose to go down to 19 buses instead of 20, which is Plan C, we still have an aged fleet. We've purchased 12 buses over the last 5 years. Just remember, I know that there's been some questions about that. We've purchased 12 brand new buses in 5 years. And our habit's been to purchase 2 a year. We would probably still need to stay on the cycle of two every year, because as I presented in a previous board meeting, we need to probably get in the habit of taking those buses when they're 8 years old and while they still have equity and trading them in and getting more. So we need to be on a more aggressive cycle. But if this board were to decide to go with our radical plan, where we eliminate 9 buses or 9 routes, we would not need to necessarily be on an aggressive purchase plan of 2 every year. But it's going to be based on what plan this district chooses to move forward with. And it is still, the age of our fleet is very important. And right now, a little less than half of our fleet still needs to be addressed.
The numbers that are in here, do they include benefits?
Yes.
If you go in your packet on the supporting documents, Mr. President, it will be about the 3rd page over. It starts with costs.
So it flips, this thing has a flip chart, and so
it starts with the costs that were reported on the T2. Right there.
At the top it says 18 cost analysis.
That's the cost analysis. If you flip that over one page, if you go to the page where there's yellow, you start seeing where the vehicle savings are if you reduce a bus. And the double lines on the right-hand side where it says 45, when you reduce a bus, that's about what you're going to end up with in savings or reduced costs. You may start out with more cost per bus, but because you have overhead that won't go away just because you get rid of a bus, you don't realize every penny of savings when you reduce a bus. And then the next page shows there are actually additional costs a district incurs by running that 3rd tier. And we can only present an honest and truthful report if we report those costs. All those costs are reflected in the figures that I quoted at the cost of each routing plan. Any questions at all about the figures, those figures? Try to make it as self-explanatory as possible. Again, these are your costs. These aren't state costs. These aren't anybody else's costs. The 4th page.
About as detailed as I've ever seen a report, Mike.
Yeah, I'd say B is something that wouldn't take too much to implement, rather than some communication to the parents and teachers and administrators about the times, but it seems like something that could be easily worked into the day.
And then moving on to Plan C at the appropriate time. I think it's a good recommendation, and I would support that.
One of the things Doug said to us today when he was meeting with CJ and me was that if we accepted his recommendations, the board accepted those, and we worked to implement Plan B, that would take some time. But it would take the entire 2nd semester of studying and planning to implement Plan C next year. That would not be something that Doug would recommend that you say, oh, we'll do it after spring break, or we'll do it 3 weeks after Christmas break. In fact, probably implementing Plan B, my recommendation, and we would do lots of talking about this, we would really outline that plan, what it would look like. But again, it's basically bumping those two elementaries times ahead 15 minutes. We would give, I think it's very fair to give a lot of notice because people have to make plans. Not as much in the afternoon because we think it's going to be a wash, but 15 minutes, I know my kids are grown now, but when I was transporting my kids or getting my kids to bus stops, 15 minutes made a difference. So we would have to give people a lot of lead time on that. And then, you hear a lot of talk about districts that go to state minimum transportation. Again, that is just not something that can happen overnight. I mean, it takes a lot of planning to do that. And I know that I've heard people say that, your levy doesn't pass, you cut busing the next week. It's not even possible. It's not even possible. It takes an unbelievable amount of time and planning and communication to do something like that. So any other questions for Doug? So Doug, I appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this. Doug is also completing, not quite done yet, but completing an operational study that we asked them to do. You guys approved that contract already, which will give us an idea of just kind of looking at the department as a whole from top to bottom, on the top, looking at all areas of operations for ways that we can get better and more efficient. And so please plan to hear from me at a subsequent board meeting. Also involve CJ because it's going to be operational. That's his hat, operations. He was a performance auditor. But we're going to probably come forward with some sort of report and recommendations in that area as well. So questions, any last thoughts? If you guys take this home and start reading it and you have questions, funnel those to me and I'll shoot those to Doug. I mean, if there ends up being a need to have Doug come back, we can try and arrange that too. It would have to fit his schedule, obviously, but there's a lot here. But his executive summary that you just went through at the front is a pretty nice watered down version, but the data's all there. If you guys want to get into it, he spent a couple hours with us today and actually a couple hours a couple weeks ago just going through the line by line of the data. So it's all there, and it's a little difficult to understand, but the summary, use that summary and go back into that data, and I'll help you understand it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, it's been a pleasure to serve your board and your opportunity to use me or to use my knowledge doesn't end tonight. I'm here for you, whatever you need.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, moving on to my next item, and it's relevant, plays into this discussion a little bit, but obviously our levy failed on Tuesday night. It overwhelmingly failed. But before we talk about that, I want to publicly thank our Streetsboro Levy Committee. Some of those ladies are here. It was a few people that did a lot of work. And so members of the Streetsboro Levy Committee, would you please stand up that are here? Come on, stand up, stand up. These ladies gave up their life for the last several months, and I applaud them for getting the message out there. We were very disappointed, obviously, in the outcome, but it wasn't due to the lack of effort of these ladies and a couple others. So again, thank you. You guys were absolutely amazing. So thank you. So the levy failed. So I wanted to initiate discussion with the board. And I think that at this point, there are two paths this board can take right now. All right. As a superintendent, I recommend that you choose one of these two paths. And it doesn't necessarily have to be tonight, but I want some direction. The fact of the matter is we were going to collect, had this levy passed starting January 1 through June 30th, we were going to collect about $1.7 million. Right now, our projected deficit, we would have a cash balance this year, but next year our projected deficit without the levy was $1.7 million. So taking the money that we would have collected, the $1.7 million, coupled with the deficit, we're going to end the year next year, a negative cash balance of about $1.7 million. That's about $3.4 million that we need to make up. So there are two paths we can take right now. So obviously we need to put this issue on the ballot in May. We're going to talk about that too. But initially there are two paths that we could take. One, we could maintain status quo. And then you charge me with, and CJ with, beginning the process of identifying and analyzing every single area of operation that doesn't impact the classroom where we can make cuts and reductions in order to meet that deficit. So we can maintain status quo and start doing that. In fact, we already had a several-hour meeting yesterday and we began doing that. And we are well on our way to doing that. And we've got lots of meetings scheduled to do that. And we're involving all of our stakeholders. The second path is that in light of the fact that we are not going to had the levy passed, we're not going to collect that $1.7 million. And so now you have to add that to an additional, possibly an additional ask in May. So it might not just be a $3.4 million a year levy that we need. We might need more than that now because we're now not going to collect that 1.7 and we're going to be in the hole another 1.7 million next year. So there's a line of thought that says that we start analyzing right now and making cuts right now that don't impact the classroom. Because the goal is when you move into a fiscal situation, a fiscal crisis, you've got to do things that can't impact the kids in the classroom. So what would be some of those things? Well, I'll give you examples, and I'm certainly not implying that, but what are some things that we could do right now? Well, we could analyze field trips. Are we going to send kids on field trips? There are costs associated with that. Are we going to keep our facilities open after the kids leave for community events, community programs? Or do we close those buildings down and save on operation costs? Our teachers engage in professional development during the day. We could eliminate all non-funded professional development. You guys have heard many, many times about our letters grant at the elementary. We get money from the Ohio Department of Education to educate our teachers during the day. But there are lots of other things that we do with our teachers aimed at purposeful professional development to make them $100 a day, multiplied times the number of times. Then you add to that your absentee rate. You can't do anything about that, but we can. So there are costs that we can control right now. So I need direction from the Board of Education. Do we remain status quo? We keep doing what we're doing. We keep doing what we've already planned to do. We keep our buildings open at night for things that have already been scheduled. And then we wait to see, then CJ and I and our team begin looking at that menu of things that we're going to have to cut if the levy doesn't pass in May. Or do you want me to begin looking at and maybe present options to you in December of things that we can address right now to address this deficit? Because we have a deficit right now. So those are the two things I want to talk about first, and then we're going to talk about what we need to do as far as moving forward and timing and when we need to file and all that. So I'll open the floor up.
Well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't know what we needed to do right now to stem the tide. So I would like to hear in December what are some of the cuts that could be made now that are not going to impact the classroom, but that help lower that deficit number.
Yeah, that's definitely the direction I would take for sure.
I would agree. And I know that the school district continues to look at ways to reduce our costs. And I know that there's going to be people in the community that say, oh, you're just looking at reducing costs now because of the levy field. But the school district does it all the time. And the challenge is always getting that information out to the community about what we're doing to save money. There's always talk on social media, chatter on social media, that the school district doesn't do this or doesn't do that. And it's frustrating because the information's out there. The levy committee put a ton of information out there, and there's still people that were clueless as to what was going on in the school district. They're not here, they're not listening, they're not listening online, they're not searching for the video and watching the school board meetings. You know, short of going to everybody's house and telling them every month what happens at the school board meetings, they're going to be there. It's going to be that way. But I think we do need to look at any additional cost-saving measures that we can take now and prepare for the future just in case. Just in case the majority of the community wants Credit School District. Credit schools, that's what they're going to get.
Andy, did you? So I think what I'm hearing is what CJ and I will begin doing, and we've already started it. We're going to do two things. First of all, we're going to look at some immediate things that we could do to address the deficit. And I'll give you a menu of items with costs associated to those about what it would look like if we did this year, right now. If we did this effective January 1, if we did this effective, And then secondarily, and I don't know that I will have this, I know I will not have this ready for the December board meeting, but we're going to begin looking at a very comprehensive look at our district, every aspect of our district, and begin looking at areas that we can cut. Because we have to cut, in essence, $3.4 million from our budget.
Well, we've said it before in the past, that the only two ways that you can deal with a budget is you bring in more money or you spend less. Those are the only two things. Those are our only two options.
Correct.
To bring in more money or spend less. So, you know, like I said, I think the best option is to come in December and see how we can spend less without impacting the classroom, because the bottom line is education of the kids is what we're here for, and to make sure that they achieve in the classroom. So let's look at what we can do outside of the classroom.
And I do want to just say that, and I know that board, you know this, but I just do want to say that, you know, it is, you know, one of the themes that I've heard since Tuesday. And again, you know, people can say what they want to say on social media, and it doesn't necessarily have to have validity behind it. But I do want to point out that it is a fact that we've lost more than $10 million in tangible personal property tax, which is money from our general fund since 2010 through today. That is a fact. And it is also a fact that we've had no new money in this district, operating money, not bond issue. Bond issue is for building buildings. You cannot use that to pay salary or pay the lights or buy textbooks. It's for building. We've had no new money in this district since 2010. We've increased by more than 200. It's closer to 300 students. We've had to hire staff to accommodate that growth. We've added tons of great programs to benefit our kids. All those things have cost money, and we've not had an additional new money since 2010. PI dollars. We have a PI levy that's on the books. We collect $600 and some thousand a year. Those monies can only be used for capital improvement in building, buying buses, buying Chromebooks, fixing a boiler, adding an addition to a board office.
You really technically can't buy Chromebooks unless you get a 5-year guarantee on the Chromebooks.
Typically it was for computers, but my point is those dollars, that PI dollar levy, cannot be used to pay a salary, to pay a light bill, a gas bill, or operate a building. It's permanent improvement. We will continue to use our permanent improvement dollars in a responsible way to purchase the things that we need to make this district run and to benefit our students. We will continue to do that. That is not operating dollars.
Well, you know, and to your point, it's easier to be mad at us who sit here in this room who are in Streetsboro than it is to be mad at the folks in Columbus and ask them why they're taking away money. We're here, we're accessible, see us in the grocery store, we live in your neighborhoods. It's kind of hard to go down to Columbus and face your state legislators and demand that they properly fund education. So it's easier to say that we must be misspending it or we're doing something wrong because you can yell at us because we're here. And I'm okay with that because that's, you know, hey.
Denise, and to your point, you know, the fact of the matter is, and I actually had somebody tell me they didn't believe that we only receive about $1,800. We're a capped district. We receive $1,800 of the $6,000 plus that's guaranteed per kid in Ohio schools. Streetsboro receives $1,800, period. Where does the rest of the money come to operate? From our property tax dollars, period. And when a kid leaves us, and they do, they go to other schools, they go to online schools, the $6,000 plus goes with them. So where does the difference come from? The general fund. That's a fact. I don't know how else to explain it. That is a fact. School funding in the state of Ohio, when we speak to Ohio, is broken. It was identified as broken more than 20 years ago, and it still hasn't been fixed. So moving on, so Brian, you had, what Brian had inquired about the timing in order to get a levy on the ballot for May. So I have those timelines.
Can I just say something? I know that we're going to look into what we can do now. We should be looking at that all the time to see where we can save money. But we need to be drastic now and look at what can we absolutely do at this moment. And number two, we're going to put this back on the ballot in May. And I'd like to have a comprehensive list of what will happen if it fails again.
That's what we're looking at right now.
You know, and so that there's no confusion out there that we didn't know that this was going to happen. We didn't know that you were going to cut this. We didn't know you were going to eliminate this. You know, I want a comprehensive list so that we can have that on our website so they can see it.
And to be clear, you know, I've been on this board for a long time. This district, and I've been operated at the state level. I know a lot of school board members from rural districts, you name it, and I've met them and talked to them from affluent districts. This district has never had a lot of fat in its budget. I mean, there's some districts, you know, if they need to start cutting, they can start with lacrosse, or, you know, there are districts that have a lot more amenities than we do around the state. There are districts that have a lot less than we do around the state, but on average, this district does not have a lot of fat in its budget. So I just put that out there.
I would agree.
The other thing too is if you looked at the districts that did have levies on the ballot, additional monies on the ballot for this past election, I believe there wasn't a whole lot that passed. So it was
That new money.
we're kind of in the same position as a lot of other districts that we're.
I have several colleagues that I speak to on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, that are in the same boat that we are, and maybe some that you could even classify as might even be worse off than we are right now.
Particularly in Portage County.
Correct.
So, well, I was gonna say, before we start putting together two data lists and talking to a lot of people before the levy and since it's failed, is they didn't understand why. Not, I mean, maybe not necessarily lack of education. They didn't understand why we needed money. Why are we asking for this? So before we come right out with, I mean, too big of a, this cut. I mean, we do need to put together where we can save some money, but I don't want to jump right to, I mean, putting together a list of how bad it's going to get. Because I don't want to come out like we're trying to scare people into it. Because I think that people just didn't honestly understand why we needed the money.
Because they're not here.
They're not
because
here.
They don't get involved in the school district.
Whatever the reasons is, they didn't understand why. And they just say, I don't want more money. Well, they didn't know why we needed more money. And we should definitely look into what we can do to save money because we have to, but we should.
And that's why I said we need to be crystal clear as to what will happen if it does not get approved the next time.
Okay, but just to be clear, I thought what I heard was that, one, we're gonna be compounding what we were losing beginning of January, so we need to have a list of something that we can look at in December. But before we go back to the ballot in May, we need to have that more extensive list. So we're not gonna come out in December and say, this is what's gonna be lost. December is just to stem the tide that's gonna begin in January, and then Mr. Daba and CJ need time to evaluate where we're gonna be at before, you know, the May elections. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're already deficit spending. We lose another $1.7 million next year, but we're already in a deficit spending position.
We've been for 2 years.
Right, we've been talking about that for a long time.
One thing that we've done in the past too, which I think we should revisit doing, is also pointing out what our students get when, what they're getting now, what they could potentially get in the future if we're looking at adding programs and so forth. So that it's not all negative that if this doesn't pass, we're going to cut. But this is what the benefits are for continuing to support your schools. Again, I know we've done that in the past, but people need to see both sides of it.
Think about what we've added in the last 10 years.
Yeah. You know, one of the themes that I heard was that one of my videos pointed out things that we've already been doing. Well, there were things that we were already doing since 2009 when we made all the cuts. And when we passed our levy in 2010, our last operating levy, we started incrementally adding things back that were taken away, and we've added lots of programs. When we did the millage for this last levy, the 7.5 mil levy, we created a millage that we thought it was high, and I've never said that it wasn't. It was a big burden for our taxpayers, but it was pretty thin. And really, to be quite honest with you, at the end of 5 years, had we passed that 7.5 mil levy, we would have finished with a cash balance based on the current biennium budget. So we don't know what that is, so that's an unknown. We were only going to end with about $110,000 cash at the end of year 5. So that in itself would not have enabled us to add a whole lot more. We would have had to stay in the, and I'm going to defend and say it's stay in the same one we've been in, is that we critically analyze before we add a program. But Kevin, to your point, I think that we need to I need to do a better job of highlighting the things that we've added, the opportunities that we've added for our kids. And if we are to pass a levy in May, these are the things that we're going to be able to keep and possibly enhance. I think that's what your point was.
Yeah. The other thing we need to do is we need to try and bolster the support of the 3 ladies that ran the levy campaign in our district. We need people to help.
3's not going to do it.
No, it's not.
I mean, I'm not a smart man, but
I'm sorry.
I would say that some of the, getting the information out, it's tough to reach people. We don't have a newspaper anymore in Streetsboro. The website is there. The ladies put out things many different ways, but that all entails people going to being active in wanting to seek out the information. So I don't know how you overcome that. There was canvassing done, but again, that takes bodies, and sometimes, I didn't canvass this last time, but I've canvassed before, and it is kind of disheartening when you canvass and put something in somebody's on their door or in their paper bin, and you see that they haven't taken stuff out for a week, and you're putting something there that they may not read. And like I said, it takes bodies to canvass, and you do it once, and there's no guarantee that a majority of voters or interested parties are gonna get that message that you bring to their door. You put the website up, and how many people are going to go to the website and look at it, whether it's the levy website or the school district website. I mean, we would send things home with kids. I mean, your parents have to take it out of their backpack and look at it. That has been a chief criticism, that we don't put out enough information. And for the literally handful of people that have traditionally always worked on levy campaigns, they are really busting their butts and just trying to distribute information. And we still hear, well, you haven't done enough, even though it's all in school website, it's on the levy website. People love to go to social media, and they'll spend all day with their phone dinging with Facebook things coming up, but they won't take 5 minutes to go to the levy website or the school district website and get the information, or barring that, even picking up the phone and calling the superintendent. There are a couple of people who will do that, but the vast majority of people that complain about not getting their information don't make the effort to find it out. And I'm sorry if somebody finds that offensive, but I've been doing this for a long time, and the information is out there. It has always been out there. It's on the website, the school district website, it's on the levy website. It used to go home in the kids' backpacks. I have personally Xeroxed, gone to Staples and picked up literally thousands and taken them and driven them around to each school building, because we have to count out the number of flyers for each school building. I have done that. And I have driven them to the school building, and they have been distributed to the kids. I know that happens. So, like I said, it wasn't done this time, but that's what's happened in the past. I have seen the levy websites updated. The information is out there, but somebody once told me, a long time ago. A school levy is the only tax that you can vote no on. Can't vote no on a federal tax, can't vote no on a state tax. The county commissioners get to decide if you're going to pay more on a sales tax. But a school levy is the only tax you can say no to. So, and like I said, I'm sorry, but I've done this for a long time. And people want to say nasty things about the school board, nasty things about the administration, and claim that we're not in it for the right reason. And like I said, I know a lot of school board members around the state, and trust me, there are a lot of not good school boards. I mean, there are some board members that do it because they want to fire the head coach of the football team, because they don't like this teacher, and they get on the school board for the wrong reason. Every school board member I've served with on this board has done this for the right reason. And I've hired a lot of superintendents here. And Mr. Dalbaugh, I would hands down say, is one of the best, if not the best superintendent that we've had. So, yes, go ahead and applaud. You know, I'm not, so this is how I feel. I'm sorry if I'm yammering on here, but this is my 4th term. I've been through a lot of levy campaigns. I've been through a lot of superintendents, a lot of administrators, and I've seen things from the inside. And I've heard people come here and stand at that microphone and call us everything except a child of God. We do the very best we can with the information that we have. Nobody on this school board is getting rich doing this. We do this because it's important for this community. I am a parent. I have a child that I put on a bus in the morning, and I have hopes for her future, as do all the other school board members on this board. And I've never spoken like this before. Like I said, I've been on this board a long time. But, you know, 4th term, don't know what's going to happen in the future. I just kind of feel like I've sat here and had a lot of people come to these microphones and talk about the school board and how we can't be trusted. We don't know what we're doing something inappropriate, and that's not true. And I feel the need to push back on that. And I'm sorry if people don't like that or they find that offensive, because it's been my experience that the people that I have served with on this board are doing this for the right reason. And we have met and worked with a number of superintendents, and Mike Dalbaugh does a very good job. And I will say this, and that every time it's difficult to find good superintendents. The average around the state is, I think, maybe 2 years, 2.5 years for a superintendent. And if you have a good superintendent, there are people out there looking to hire him away. And there are other districts that can pay more money than we can pay. The fact that we have somebody in this district who's committed to Streetsboro and is willing to drive an hour each way from home to work, and then sit here until sometimes 11 o'clock or midnight on a school board meeting night, and drive up here for football games, basketball games, and everything else. And in addition to have some of the emails that he gets from parents that are not just, well, I'm unhappy with this, but nasty name-calling emails, nasty phone calls. Like I said, he does it because he cares about this district and he cares about our students, my child. So, like I said, I just wanted to clarify that when you come in December, that is to help us stem the tide that's going to start accumulating more in January. And when you come back before May, that again, will tell us what we need to cut in case it doesn't pass a second time. And I'm done now.
So in order to get this on the ballot in May, the timeline that we have to follow is we have to have everything filed by February 6th. So if you remember, we have to pass 2 resolutions. We have to pass a resolution of necessity and then a second resolution to proceed. So if it has to be filed by February 6th, we're going to have to pass our second resolution at the January board meeting, the first resolution next month. So the top clock is ticking. So I would like to ask the board what your thoughts are on how you want to do this. Do we want to have a special meeting where CJ and I outline what we believe the millage and type of levy should be? Or do you want us to come prepared to talk about that at the next board meeting with a resolution that then we can pass and proceed with? It's up to all of you. Understanding that we have Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks, so we are compressed, but we do have some time that we could do a special board meeting. But CJ and I are going to probably need at least 2 weeks to put that type of thing together. CJ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, probably a little bit of time. Just keep in mind, we can have a special board meeting to pass these resolutions as well if we need to. We just put together this timeline to show you.
I'm loud enough, I really don't put the mic down. But this was just to show you the time frame of where.
What's the first date again?
Sorry.
First date needs to be.
Well, everything has to be filed by
We have to
February
file it by
6th.
February 6th. So there has to be 2 resolutions passed prior to February 6th for us to get everything to the Board of Elections.
Is there a time frame that has to be in between the resolutions, or is it?
No.
Okay, so we could come in
December.
hypothetically December, discuss it at our regular board meeting, January, have a,
First resolution.
First resolution, and before February. The deadline.
Great. So then we could have a second meeting in January, the 1st of
So
February.
we have a special meeting in
Resolution to proceed, correct.
We just want to make sure we file in enough time that if for some reason there's an issue with ballot language or anything like that, we can correct it and hold the meeting.
I don't think it's my opinion, I don't think it's necessary to have a special board meeting in December.
Okay.
To discuss this. We can do it at our regular board meeting. If everyone's agreeable to that, December's a busy month for everybody.
So CJ and I will come in December with some options, as well as what we would recommend as millage. Or a dollar amount, if we go emergency.
I would say as much information as you can bring, that's prepared.
Okay, and also in board docs, there is a document that CJ compiled that has the history of our levies and the analytics behind this passage rate. Also, it's the facts that we just talked about as far as when you have to file, and it also has our expiring levies, because we do have 2 expiring levies in 2019. So those will have to be either put up for renewal. We'll have to talk about that, as well as when they expire and when we quit collecting on those. All that information is contained in that document there on board docs. And credit CJ, he turned that around in less than 24 hours. Hats off to him. That was some good work on CJ's part. Okay, anything else on the levy before we move on? I'm going to remove the next item off my agenda on bus bids. We'll talk about that under superintendent's recommendations. And the final thing is we did receive, we applied for, received, and I submitted the correct paperwork to accept about $12,100 in a grant from the Attorney General for safety. My suggestion would be, and I know that we've kind of talked about this before, but my suggestion would be to move forward with purchasing bolo sticks, begin at the high school and move down to the middle school, and take that money as far as it can go. In addition to the bolo sticks, and I do have some information there about the bolo stick, but I've shown it to you before. I would also suggest, it's about $79 a room, that we purchase an emergency ladder that folds up, but it's a pretty heavy duty ladder that can hold a lot of weight with wide tread, that in an emergency, if we had to exit people if they had to barricade into a room in the second floor, but they still had to escape, they would have means to egress from the second floor of the high school. That's our only second floor, that's our only second story building in the district.
Do those also come with some type of a tether that is, not just a ladder.
They're pretty heavy duty, extensive.
I know, but
What I would do is, if you guys are okay with that, I'm gonna actually involve Kevin in taking a look at the products and involve the fire department, because I wanna buy something. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Kevin, but I want to make sure that we purchase something that is strong enough for any of our students and staff, and also sturdy enough. You know, the reality, unfortunately, behind a portable ladder is that there's some movement involved, and there is a bit of danger in going down a portable ladder. But in an event of emergency where you have to egress quickly, and that barricade, you're barricaded in, and that barricade's for whatever reason not appropriate, and you need to leave. My feeling is we take our chances, and if we purchase the best product, we take our chances of getting the kids out and staff out. But I would not make a purchase like that without the fire department, Mr. Grimm, putting their stamp of approval on it, because there's tons of products out there. But believe it or not, on average, a home one costs about $29, and then there's some industrial ones for a 3rd-story building, which would about equate to what we have 2nd to 3rd story. So we probably go with the 3rd story, so you had enough. You know, they can go all the way up to about $200 a room. But again, I just did some preliminary looking. That's something I'm gonna look in the trade show down at OSPA this week. This next week, I'm gonna look at some safety items. Just to give you an idea on the Bolo Stick, we actually were able to negotiate as part of the consortium. We're gonna be able to get those for about $59 a room. And then when we have our entire order, they'll give us 5% off the entire order and free shipping. And our maintenance department can install those. We don't need to have a company install those.
And Mike, since you gave me that one Bolo Stick to show the fire chief, we don't have any problem with it as far as the fire department goes. And I don't believe the police department does either. We've talked about access to the tool that needs to be used to take those off. The delay that I'm getting, and I'll make a phone call tomorrow, it needs to be put on the certificate of occupancy for every school building where this is going to be. There's been at least 2 emails that I've sent over to the current chief building official with no response. So I'm gonna make a phone call first thing tomorrow morning when he gets in. It's currently a contract employee, so we'll get a hold of that person. It should be fairly simple just to make a change on the certificate of occupancy, but that way it's there, and it means you have to change them. It has to be noted on the certificate of occupancy that it's been approved. I don't know what the wording is. That's a building department thing, but it's just getting that on there. And it should be just a simple change of pulling up a certificate of occupancy, making the change, you know, whatever the approval process is. If they need something from police and fire, we'll get that in one day.
Yeah, and I won't purchase until we have the certificate. Try and get that moving forward.
And we'll do some training with it, you know, so that our people understand, you know, if we would have to come into a school building and remove those, they know where that tool is. We've discussed some of that already. So.
Okay. Unless so it's $12,100 we received from the Attorney General. We can use it for these items. So my belief is that this will go a long way. So we'll do a lot with our the Bolo Sticks in many of our buildings. So if there aren't any other questions, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dalbo. Moving on to Treasurer's report.
As you can see by the spreadsheet in front of you, the health of our general fund at the end of September, $6,757,718.68. It's the continuing trend as we've seen in the past months from the 3-year history above. You know, there's no, you know, the TPP has gone down, which then affects the general fund health, and that's going to be the continuing trend as we can see moving forward. And that concludes my report.
Once again, you blew Mr. Dalbo out of the water. Timing.
My mission in life.
He seated his hand in his budget.
Thank you, CJ. Moving on to board reports. Mrs. Babel.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the PTA Holiday Connection is going to take place on December 1st from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. They had a typo on their website and it had the wrong time up there. The correct time is 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. for the PTA Holiday Connection on December 1st. So make a note of it. And Mr. Alba, is there an update on the pathways to graduation? I think the state board made a recommendation, did they not, to add the additional pathways, but the legislature has yet to act on that?
That's correct. And the general consensus is that now that the election's been determined, the general consensus is that they'll take action after the new governor's in place. We've tried to push that. Many school districts around Ohio, including us, are sending letters to try and push that, but there's a pretty strong feeling that until the transition takes place, that it won't happen, which kind of puts our high school folks, unfortunately, behind the eight ball.
And limbo. So it'll be the next General Assembly, which will be installed in early January, that we'll have to, so we may need some emails to our state legislators, from our board members and even the general community to get them to move aggressively on that. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Beva. Mr. Gibson? I have nothing right now. Mr. Grimm?
The high school marching band had their final marching concert performance for the season yesterday at Streetsboro High School. It was wonderful and nice to sit inside the auditorium and listen to the music instead of the gymnasium. So they're moving on to concert band now, and the mayor had posted some information about Route 303. It's not a huge issue for our transportation department right now because it's still open, but they should be done with Route 303 construction at what was the bowl. Hopefully next week it all goes as planned. It's no longer a bowl, it's paved. It's paved and looks good. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Kelly?
A few things regarding athletics. The girls volleyball had a great year as they won their sectional championship and finished second in the PTC. Baseball and softball press box and concession stand projects are moving along very well. Things are starting to look really good up there. Our district athletics department hosted 4 OHSAA state tournament soccer games this past week, including the girls district championship game, a regional semifinal game, and 2 regional championship games. Of course, the ticket proceeds go to the OHSAA, but it was a really good experience for our staff, and we were able to showcase our nice, beautiful stadium facilities. So that was nice. Randy told me that we received a lot of compliments about our stadium. So that was really good. Boys soccer finished the regular season with the school best record of 10-5-1. Thank you, Mike. Andrew Sway was the PTC goalkeeper of the year and first team all district selection. Sheehan Garamani, I hope I didn't mess that up. Thank you very much. Received help from the audience. PTC offensive player of the year and second team all district selection. Coach Paul was the PTC and Portage County coach of the year. He was voted coach of the year by all of the other coaches in the league, so that's a pretty good thing to have there. Orlando Mene was all district assistant coach of the year as well. So congrats to the coaching staff and the boys.
John, just want to mention, I think it goes a long way with Coach Pauly. He's been here with that program from back when my kids were in high school, and he's stuck with the program. And this was a really big deal for him to get coach of the year. I'm so proud of him and him sticking through thick and thin with our district. And they got a great program going on right now. I can't wait to see what he brings next year and the year after. But I want to just say how proud I am of that. All the sports teams, but in particular, what he's done with that program himself.
That boys soccer team has come a long way. Believe me, we've seen some rough seasons. So the boys golf team had a really good improvement from last year. 8 of the 9 golfers will be back next year. The girls team played in its first ever matches and have all 5 of the golfers back next year as well. So a lot of experience coming back. Boys and girls cross country. The girls cross country finished the season 5th out of 7 in the PTC. The boys cross country team finished the season 6th out of 8 at the PTC behind 5 regional Qualifying teams, Riley Devers broke into the 17-minute range, but ended the season early due to injury. Let's see, girls soccer team had a good season as well. They finished with a 12-3-3 record and finished second in the PTC. They set many score records as they tied the score record for wins in a season, and they set a record with 8 shutouts. They had a school record 4 players being named to the first team all PTC, including 2 freshmen for the first time ever, Ella Devers and Emma Flick, and then 9 players were recognized in all PTC teams. Freshman Emma Flick set a school record for goals in a season with 25, and she's a freshman. That's pretty cool. Varsity team had a 4-6 record this season. They had a very competitive schedule. And they started 7 to 8 sophomores and freshmen. They were competitive in every game. So although their record doesn't show it, they still had a pretty good season. The JV football team, made mostly up of freshmen, had a 7-1-1 record. So some things to look forward to there. And lastly, Riley Richardson tallied over 1,000 yards rushing on the season, becoming the first Rocket running back since 2012 to reach that milestone. That's all I got. Sorry for the long minute. I could talk more, but I don't want to bore everybody. So I'm sorry. It gets me excited.
A lot of great things here.
Yeah, I have some other stuff, but like I said, we'll wait.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I sent everyone the Maplewood meeting notes, and I hope you all enjoyed the all boards dinner. That was great. I was not able to attend. They did tell me that it was probably one of the best meals that they've had.
Surf and turf.
Yeah.
It was really
Food
good.
was phenomenal.
So I am jealous that I missed that one, and I hope you all enjoyed it. That meal is prepared by all the students at Maplewood. Just thought I'd mention that to the audience here. So
There were a number of Streetsboro students in that group.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just want to make another shout out to the PASS group and say how much we all appreciate everything that you've done for this levy, and we will make sure that I'm going to do everything I can to get you a little, the support that you need to get May to pass in May for our levy that will be on the ballot. That's all I have. So moving on to the consent agenda. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through K.
I'll second.
First and a second. Any comments? Just want to mention on item C there, the donations. We had the Fraternal Order of Eagles donated $4,000 to the cafeteria program. I believe they do that every year. We appreciate that. And Ed Sumsky donated $500 to the Educational Foundation for the Mike Mack Scholarship. He always tends to get on our agenda somehow, either in person or in a donation. So we want to say thank you for
He's a
those.
good guy and supports us from near and far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he really is.
So any other comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Ms. Bava,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Motion carried. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations.
I have 3. Item A, it is recommended the Board of Education name the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio as the designee to hear all expulsion appeals.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second, any comments?
Mike, if you could just give us a brief, why are we doing this?
Typically, this is actually a trend in most school districts. Most school boards do not hear an appeal for an expulsion. So we've had that done here. This board has heard expulsions. It's very expensive. It costs the district quite a bit of money. And this is a more economical way, and I believe a more appropriate way to handle expulsion appeals. It's a third party independent. That way it doesn't put the board on the spot to possibly overturn a decision made by a superintendent or by a recommendation by a building principal.
Where would they hold the expulsion hearing?
They would be on site here, and it's at a cost of $65 an hour, and they're typically no more than 2 hours. When we do it, we actually have to hire an attorney, we have to hire a court reporter, and that bill usually ends up in the thousands of dollars. So it's achieving the exact same outcome. You have an independent hearing officer that's trained to hear these appeals, and they either will uphold, modify, or vacate the expulsion. It's a hearing officer that's trained to hear expulsions.
Glad that we're looking to do it.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Ms. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes. Motion carried.
Item B, it is recommended the Board of Education ratify the Transportation Services Consulting Contract with OSBA for consulting service related to school bus purchases.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second.
So we've talked, we've been on a cycle every year of purchasing 2 buses. We delayed that until this fall due to many reasons, but now with our current transition, transitioning with having an interim transportation supervisor, we still need, there was a feeling that we still need to purchase 2 buses. So OSBA, and if you guys met Doug, they actually handled that bidding for us. So we actually went out and competitively bid and actually have the bid of choice, the bids and the bid of choice to purchase 2 buses. However, I did pull that recommendation, which would have been separate, off the agenda because I think in light of our levy failing and the discussions we had with Doug prior to about a routing study, I felt that it was not responsible for me to recommend purchasing 2 buses right now. So this was for them handling all of the bidding. And so we do have a successful bid, and it is good for 90 days. So look, once we have a decision on routing, what we're going to do, then we'll make a decision on whether or not we're going to purchase 2 buses out of PI dollars. So this bid will be good for 90 days. Questions?
Please call the roll.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Baba?
Abstain.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on.
Item C, it is recommended the Board of Education ratify the purchase of a district truck and snow blower in the amount of $32,250.91 from PI funds.
I'll second.
We have first and second. Any comments?
Yeah, just very quickly, our district plow truck, and we also use it for deliveries, has been beyond its last leg, and it's not going to be able to push snow this year. So we were able to go out and get several bids. I forwarded some of those bids to you guys. And because we're members of the Ohio School Plan, so that's the power of a consortium, we actually were able to get a brand new 2019 F-250 truck with all the plow equipment and an undercoating and warranties, typical warranty, for the $32,000. Just to give you a quick comparison, we got bids from several car dealerships in Northeast Ohio, and we were looking at 2016 F-250s with about 32,000 miles on it without plows for right around the $32,000 mark. So this, I was actually shocked that the Ohio School Plan purchasing price was so good. So the reason I went ahead and moved forward with that purchase was because it's going to take 6 weeks to get that in, and we need that in order to move snow should we have a snow event in order to get our schools open.
So what's the plan for the old plow truck then?
We're trying to get the company to take it from us, to trade it in, and then we'll have to have you guys approve that at the next board meeting. But the problem is it's not worth anything. I don't even know that we could sell it.
What's the model on that? 99 or something?
It was more than that. It was like 99,000.
That's 99 hard.
All local Streetsboro miles.
It's like driving it.
And we have good mechanics, and when our mechanics look at us and say, yeah, I can't do anything else with this engine. And it's actually also the transmission. There's some issues with the transmission that just aren't worth fixing. So to answer your question, Andy, I'm hoping that they'll take it from us, but I don't know that they'll. If not, I'll probably ask permission from the board. I can sell district property under a certain threshold. It meets that certain threshold, so I may put it in the paper and see if someone will buy it. But that would be the board.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Ms. Babel.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes, motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Moving on to the treasurer's recommendations.
I have two recommendations this evening. It is recommended the Board of Education approve a fund-to-fund transfer of $206,862 from the 003-9014 PI fund to the 034 Classroom Facility Fund.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have First and second comments.
Explain the transfer.
So it's from our PI into our classroom facility. The classroom facility is the fund that was designated for the new buildings. It's where we collect it, and then we move a certain percentage of that money every year around this time. There's a schedule for it, and this is the amount stated on those schedules, so we're just following suit with what we need to do.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Ms. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes,
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
motion carried.
Second recommendation, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the amended appropriations for fiscal year 19, and estimated resources will be adjusted as needed for permanent appropriations.
I'll second. First and second, any comments?
So in the consent agenda, we approve purpose and budget statements. They're increasing some of the funds because of some of the wonderful activities we had go on, walkathons, dance-a-thons, things like that. They brought in some revenue. Purpose and budget statements need to be adjusted. Therefore, we need to adjust the appropriations because the appropriations were appropriated based on the old purpose and budget statements. Got them off the, sorry.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes,
Mrs. Babbitt.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
That concludes my recommendation.
motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Scarsopino. Moving on to any new business, any old business. Board President's recommendations, item A. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the following board policy updates as well as new policy 8.15.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second, any comments? Please
No.
call the roll. Well,
They just reflect law, changes in Ohio Revised Code.
please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes,
Mrs. Babbitt.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
motion carried. And item B, we do not.
Could you please remove executive session from the agenda?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We will not have an executive session.
End of meeting.
And then we're good. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll move. Second.
First and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Babbitt.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes, motion carried. We are adjourned at 8:33.
Write that down. For those of you that stuck around for the long haul, we finally got one of our longest board meetings. If you